Inspiration! Inspiration struck today, and therefore it's time to cook, and it's time for another KYTT time. What I consider to be one of the most important schools of magic today, and arguably of the last 1,000 years, is the magic of Franz Barden's lineage as continued by revivalists like Mark Rasmussen's 60 Skills of Meditation. I think there's a really important video that everyone needs to watch by Bob from 60 Skills of Meditation. That video is entitled The Place That Yogis Fear, True Enlightenment. The Place That Yogis Fear, True Enlightenment. Essentially what this video is in the Franz Barden lineage, there's basically two ultimate paths and two approaches. There is the path of manifestation, and this is generally what's known as thaumaturgy. It's magic as we generally understand it. It's the use of internal power and connection to higher divine forces like Akasha, and ultimately non-dual light, but primarily Akasha, to create desirable things in the world for whatever our purposes are. Maybe we want money, maybe we want to heal people, maybe we want to hurt people, whatever it is that you want that's in the world, the path of manifestation brings that. But also there in this lineage, there's the path of enlightenment in the Barden lineage, and the path of enlightenment deals with moving instead of from the monad, from the non-dual light, out into multiplicity to create things, which is the path of manifestation. We're moving from the path of we're moving from the created world. We're moving from multiplicity. We're moving back up to that monad, to that core of being. It's the path of enlightenment. And that's really what this video covers. What I find really important about this video that we should cover is his account of the entity that you run into when you attempt to penetrate into that non-dual light realm fully. When you attempt to enter into the monad, you encounter an entity. The reason that I think this is really important to point out is that Bob from 60 Skills of Meditation has no association whatsoever. He's probably even unaware of the existence of this loosh farming prison planet soul trap stuff. He's not a soul trap YouTuber. He probably doesn't know about any of this stuff. He's really more so a magic practitioner and meditator. And so I find it really interesting that he and his students and many other masters that he's known, they all recount the same thing when they cross over to this non-dual light realm and attempt to penetrate it. They encounter this entity that tells them that they're not ready to pass over into this enlightenment realm of non-dual light, the monad, to basically withdraw from creation back into the uncreated source. You encounter an entity that tells you you're not ready yet, you have too much attachment, you're not refined enough as a soul. And when that doesn't work, this is the really interesting part. Bob says that you get bombarded by visions of your past that are extremely negative and horrible. The reason I found this so interesting is that this is identical to the descriptions of our first moments of the afterlife, as told by our most credible sources, our most credible real evidence on the afterlife from sources like Michael Newton, Newton Institute. We're told that we get encountered by our so-called spirit guide, who almost immediately starts bombarding us with a life review that touches on some of the good points of things we did, but overwhelmingly focuses on our failures, our negative actions we took in life, how we fell short, and primarily a big focus is how we've hurt other people. It gives us the perspective of everything we've done to other people from their perspective, and we get to feel their emotions and whatnot. So there's a really big focus on shame. So we're basically being shame bombed immediately after death. And I find it interesting that this is the primary weapon or tool used by these entities that insist on reincarnation is actually shame. Because there are a lot of things that happen after that. After the life review, I mean, we've just taken like Mike Tyson punch to the stomach after Mike Tyson punch to the stomach of just pure shame of how disgusting and terrible we've been. And now the shame bombing is over, we get to have the love bombing. So now the entities we encounter are like, it's okay, you don't have to hate yourself. We forgive you. It's understandable. We've seen it so many times. We accept you as you are. You just need another opportunity to make things right. We love you and we forgive you. You know? So we go from a shame bomb to a love bomb. It's very sort of narcissistic dynamic. But yeah, it seems that the primary driver of this reincarnation is absolutely the shame bomb, the life review, and it's this has gotten people so twisted up that I've seen some authors on Soul Trap theory talk about potential solutions. One of the solutions they've given. You could see this in one of Pink Tourmaline's recent videos. One of the solutions that was given is to go back into your past, go years and years and years back into your past, and try to recall every little thing you've ever done to another person that may have adversely affected them. Because apparently this is the idea is during this life review, we get shown scenes of things we've done that we kind of just offhandedly forgot about. Like we did it, and then it's like it wasn't that important to us, and then it gets revealed to us, and it's like, oh my God, that was me. I did that. And so this author's thesis is, yeah, you need to take years. You need to take several years to just log and journal all the things you've done to other people and try to make peace with it. It kind of reminds me a lot of that show, My Name is Earl, where Earl tries to basically clean up his act and to go back into his past, to all the terrible things he's done to people, and to make peace with people and try to make up for it. Yeah, it's really a lot like that. So this author is talking about you need to take several years to write down like all the thousands of things you've done to people. And even offhandedly, you need to go into your yearbook. You need to go back into your yearbook. You need to look at all these people and think really hard about did I do something to this person? Let me think back. Let me write down 3 things I can remember about this person. And in that way, you can't be blindsided by anything that you get hit by in this life review. I've heard, I should just say right off the bat, I think that's an absolutely asinine, ludicrous strategy. But I've heard similar sort of strategies. I remember I was watching a video, I think it might have been an AI video, but I'm sure there's a lot of Gnostics that believe this. It's like a Gnostic AI YouTube channel. He's talking about, so you need to speak the 172 passwords to the respective 172 archontic jailers. And if you announce the passwords to the correct jailer, you get let out. It's like, yeah, okay, now, as long as you remember the 172 passwords, and as long as you've made peace and you've written down 1,000 things you've done to people in the past, now we're getting somewhere. It's like, no, that's ludicrous. But one of the big things I want to say in this video is that I'm going to give some real powerful solutions that aren't so convoluted. This is what happens when we live in multiplicity and outwardness, and we live in the world. Of course, we know, we said 1,000 times that the Tao Te Ching says, from the Tao comes one, from the one comes two, from the three comes, I always fuck this up, man. From the Tao comes one, from the one comes two, from the two comes three, and from the three comes 10,000 things. Yeah, so when we're thinking in these guys' terms, we're thinking of like the 172 passwords, and we're thinking of the friggin' write down like 1,000 things you've done to people. We're living in multiplicity again. We're living in 10,000 things, and that can never solve the problem of reincarnation, because reincarnation is itself the path down to 10,000 things. So you're not going to solve 10,000 things with 10,000 things. It's never going to work. But there are some really powerful shifts in perspective that can much more powerfully and impactfully solve this problem, I do believe. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk about some of the other drivers of reincarnation. We talked about the life review. We talked about the shame bomb of all the things you've done wrong and all the ways that you could have been better. The sister strategy to that, the sister manipulation to that is, okay, we've outlined all the ways that you're a complete defective failure, but the good news is we have an opportunity for you to go back down to earth to make things right. You should really go down there and just make things right, So yeah, that's a really big driver, is the idea of soul refinement. And at the core of that is the premise that through reincarnation, through worldliness, you can achieve completeness of the soul. That's really the idea, is you're not ready yet. You're not ready to elevate. You're not ready to be returned to the source because you have not achieved completion of the actualization of your potential. You're not complete as a person yet. There's more you need to experience. There's more things you need to see. And yeah, that's really one of the core drivers of reincarnation, is this 1-2 punch of you have not lived up to your full potential, and you've been a failure, and you've been a terrible person to everybody. And B, the good news is, by going down into the world where nothing is complete and there is no fullness, you have the opportunity to achieve completeness and fullness. It's on its face self-contradictory. Let me take a drink. Some other popular drivers, according to all of our evidence as to what drives reincarnation, is the idea of a mission. A lot of times it's not a focus on how you've failed and how you can become better. A lot of times it's also the world is in peril. We need you to go on a special mission to save it. It's very popular and common. And then after that, we get some of the more common, well-treaded ground sort of drivers of reincarnation that we know from like Buddhism and stuff like that, is the lusts of the world. I really loved food. I really loved partying. I really loved sex. I really loved video games, whatever. The enjoyment of sensory experience itself. And then also a really popular one is the idea of reunion with your loved ones, the continuation of sort of soul ties, is that you have had this experience with this person and you want to continue to have experiences at least with their soul or something. So you reincarnate to do that. These are the really big common players. So we've outlined the problems. I wanted to start to get to the solutions. And the solutions, as far as I can tell, can be as simple as just changing the perspective. I think that the perspective shift is really important because one of the things that Barton teaches is that it's not just the body and then the soul. It's basically one big body. It's all just one big body that's separated into parts. So we have a physical body and an astral body and a mental body, and then the causal body, sort of akasha, leads us back into non-dual light, which is the monad. We take a drink. And critically, one of the things we learn from teachers like Bob, 60 Schools of Meditation, is that the astral body, of course the physical body dies, that goes without saying, but what a lot of people don't know is that the astral body actually also dies. It actually also dies not too long after physical death, maybe within the course of what you consider to be like a year or a couple years. The astral body does die. Really, it's a lot less than that. Really, it's like the equivalent of months usually. The astral body dies. The astral body containing a lot of your emotions, containing a lot of your personal predilections and emotional attachments to things. I think there's a really big reason why we get this lower astral entity bombardment so quickly is that the astral body is actually quite perishable after death, after physical death. So they want to have the astral body manipulate the mental body in order to set the mental body on a particular trajectory so that that mental body has a predisposition towards reincarnation. Let me take another drink. So the mental body understands concepts and it has an understanding of what's right. So when somebody says that your soul checks you, your soul is what tells you to do the right thing. It's your soul that is a corrective force, ethically, morally, but not just ethically and morally, but in terms of truth in general. They're not talking about the astral body. They are actually talking about the mental body. The mental body knows, but the mental body can also sort of be corrupted with bad information. It's just a mental body. So by heavy bombardment and manipulation of the astral body, that can change the orientation of the mental body, which can set it directly back on course to reincarnation. I think is a really important concept because ultimately the mental body has no emotional attachments to things. It's a lot more like logical. It's a lot more. It's on a journey towards truth and completion, but effectively, it's got some bad code in it, so it's been turned around. This is why. This is why you hear stories of like somebody dies, and I think that this is included in like Michael Newton's work or something like that. So, some source between life experience where they're planning the next life for the soul, and the soul is basically laughing with one of these spirit guides about how in their next lifetime they're going to have their limbs blown off, and they're basically making jokes about it. Something as horrific as having your limbs blown off, they're joking about it. Because the mental body can't really see things from the perspective of the physical body and the astral body. Really, it's much more drawn towards concepts and notions, particularly notions of completeness. There's an implicit desire to be drawn back towards a complete and full state. But the fundamental flaw here is that it seeks that in a realm of perpetual fragmentation and incompleteness. So I've given the example of it's like trying to fill up a cup that has a hole in it. Speaking of cup, let me take a drink. So, I bring up the mental body to say that really it's a shift in perspective, a couple of really important shifts in perspective that directly counteract the manipulations that are carried out against the vulnerable and rapidly decaying astral body that's susceptible to emotional manipulation, which itself changes the trajectory of the mental body by driving deep into understanding these shifts in perspective. It makes you resistant to the most common manipulations of the lower astral realm, and basically sets you on the path to success. And one of the first things I want to drive home, I think is the most profound, is the change in perspective regarding responsibility and accountability of the individual. This goes back to one of my recent Yuga Tea Time videos entitled The Astrology of Free Will and Determinism. And pretty much the premise of this video is that we have free will, but also we really don't. And again, it's like I've talked about on my channel like 1,000 times about how people like to speed through the study of these esoteric sciences so that they only have like a working understanding of the definitions of things, but they don't pay any attention to the immense implications of them. In other words, their understandings have no depth. I've talked about this in so many videos already. But I'm sorry, it's totally true. If you were to ask the average astrologer what the law of spirit means to them, they might say, well, we can use it to look at your career trajectory and what beautiful, amazing things you can do in the world, But really, if we dig really deep into what it means, the law of spirit is contrasted with the law of fortune with regard to what you as an individual can exercise your free will to achieve. The lot of fortune is your lot in life. It's what's given to you. It's external circumstances that you pretty much just have to eat whatever it throws at you. Whereas the lot of spirit, there is the implication of conscious free will and things that are in your control, decisions you make. So right just then and there, we can see represented in astrology, which is again one of the only accurate spiritual sciences we have. Everything else is like mythology and just ideas. This is a completely verifiable, confirmable system of spiritual sciences. We see figured in astrology determinism and free will themselves in using these lots, the lot of fortune, or some call the part of fortune, and the lot of spirit. But deeper study reveals that the lot of spirit isn't really as free as it seems. And we know this through zodiacal releasing. Zodiacal releasing is one of Vedius Valan's most prized techniques. In one of his books is like, this is one of the most powerful and accurate techniques I'm aware of. And it's absolutely true. The people who've studied zodiacal releasing, particularly from the part of fortune, a lot of fortune, it's given the people that have studied this system a sort of an existential crisis, because they've realized that everything in their life is more or less predictable. Everything that they do it's all right on time as expected. So the idea that you're moving through life and you're writing out your story, from the perspective of the lot of fortune, there's a lot of evidence against that. But what I find much more interesting is the dynamics of the lot of spirit. As the lot of spirit is concerned with the exercise of free will, you would expect it to be that way, but we know that it's not that way because of zodiacal releasing. Zodiacal releasing, again, if you haven't watched my video on the astrology of free will and determinism, and probably another good one to look at is Time Lords and the End of Creation, other video of mine. Zodiacal releasing unfolds the life into time periods where certain planets get activated. And it unfolds in levels. There's a level 1 that is over the course of decades. Level 2, it's over the course of years. Level 3, that's over the course of many months. And then a level 4, which is over the course of days. And yeah, it's like that. But the implications of this is that you have to ask the question, okay, we're zodiacal releasing from the lot of spirit. What do these changes mean? How can it be that there is a difference in the application of the free will based off of these periods, based off of what signs get activated? And you start to realize that, man, I need to blow my fucking nose. You start to realize that it's not true free will. It's like free will with a carrot on a stick. If your lot of spirit has a Time Lord that, let's say, is Mars, you have free will, but it is guided, it is actively guided. It's like a lure towards, and this is an internal lure, like emotional predilections, towards aggression, conflict, separation, cutting ties with people, ruining relationships, asserting aggression over people. So, in other words, you are authoring your story, but it's like a carrot on a stick. You're being guided in this particular direction. It's not completely out of your control, but it's like your free will, in most cases, won't transpire any other way than as dictated by the zodiacal releasing, because the zodiacal releasing of the lot of spirit indicates what lens through which your free will see things, and it indicates what emotional passions will coexist with that free will. So if you're super pissed off, right? Let's say Mars, you're super pissed off and you got in your head the idea of separating with people, your free will allows you to not do any of those things. It allows you the opportunity to not lash out. It allows you the opportunity to not separate from people. But it's like, why would you ever not do those things if everything inside of you is telling you to do those things? And that's really what the lot of spirit indicates, is that there is free will, but there's also not, and you're being guided by things. Which is why one of the things I discussed with the Gemini AI in that previous video is that I'm like, wait a minute, doesn't that mean that if you are aware of the zodiacal releasing periods from the lot of spirit and you know what predilections you'll have and what biases of perception you'll have at these specific times, doesn't that give you the foresight and awareness to work against those to achieve a more true level of free will? And it's like, yeah, that's why the Gemini said, yep, that's why astrology was considered sort of an initiatory science as a way of overcoming the chains that bind us. But again, this is only another level. We have to go even deeper, and most people never even go anywhere near this deep. Most people don't think in terms of the lot of spirit in this way, or really the implications of anything else in astrology. If we go deeper, we have to start talking about accountability and responsibility. Let's examine the possibility of a universe where there's absolutely no free will. It's like, in other words, let's exclude the lot of spirit and only go off the lot of fortune. Let's say that everything that happens is like a domino and it couldn't have possibly been any other way. Now responsibility and agency is completely out the window. Everything that happens couldn't have been any other way, and therefore there is no core ethical responsibility or agency to make things happen in any other way. So that's important to understand, is that in the existence of a world where there's no free will, there's also no responsibility, because things couldn't possibly have been any other way. So there's no responsibility on you to make things go another way, because it couldn't possibly have gone any other way. But now we have to really look at what it would look like if there is free will, but also not really, like semi-free will, as we get with a lot of spirit, where you have the ability to make choices and to you do actively have the ability to make things happen a certain way, but everything inside of you is insisting on a particular outcome emotionally and in terms of your biases of perception, and therefore your free will always transpires in a way that's usually predictable. Yeah, your acts of free will are actually predictable, according to the Zodiac release from the Light of Spirit. I consider this ultimately to be really an argument against responsibility on the level of the individual. There are forces at play that are leading you to particular outcomes. There is free will, but the free will is so freaking guided towards the outcome that it's not even really free will. So, if everything inside of a person is putting them on a particular path of things happening, let's say like if somebody's going to be like an evil dick, that means that they haven't stepped back and examined the full scope of everything they're doing and what it means. Really, it's more like something is happening inside of them where certain blinders are going up that they see things a certain way, and then there's a burning passion and desire that's driving them towards that outcome. We like to think that every action somebody takes is like, I have fully stepped back and I fully consider the full implications of this, but that's not how it works. We're so immediate and we're so ensnared by the periods of the zodiacal releasing of the Light of Spirit that more or less we're just led to everything that we do. Although the option is there if you know what to expect, which again is one of the liberating benefits of study of astrology, particularly zodiacal releasing of the Light of Spirit, that it gives you the ability to know what's going to color your free will and what's going to tug on your free will so that you can work against it. But really, the conclusion I've come to in the face of this is that the individual has no real responsibility. Not really. I mean, they've been guided down. I mean, maybe if they become aware of zodiacal releasing and now they have the ability to work against these guides of free will, that opens up, in my opinion, a new layer of responsibility moving forward. But I bring this up to say that what's happening is we go into this life between lives and we're given this life review talking about all the things that we've done wrong and how the implications that we're responsible for it, and we need to go back and make things right. But I contest that idea. All the terrible things I've done in the past, I am not responsible. It's true. Me, the individual, I am not responsible. Why? Because the circumstances lined up the shot, and then there is energetic guides that guided me towards the outcome and distorted my perception. So that's the lot of fortune in the first place, the external circumstances that have shaped who you are as a person that were not in your control. And then there is the lot of spirit aspect, is that I was shaped to be the way that I am. It was not, it was never me taking a step back to choose who I'm going to become. It's been all along, all of us, our free will has been being tugged on by these energetic nodes, these energetic spheres that get activated in predictable intervals. And so what I'm about to say may become puzzling, but I think this difference in this change in perspective will dramatically improve the success rate of engagement with what some might call archons, or let's just call it our jailers, our reincarnation, samsara spirit jailers. I just said that the individual has no real responsibility for our past. Let's just say our past. Not just this lifetime, but many lifetimes before that. Not responsible. We were guided to do what we did. It was not an act of true free will. In a manner of speaking, it almost couldn't have been any other way. And so that already heavily damages the implications of these spirit guides when they give their life review. Is that you have used this gift of consciousness and free will to do terrible things. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I was guided to do them. The individual must relinquish all responsibility because there never was any real responsibility to begin with. This is what it means to plan your next life. What does that mean? That's what we say, right? We say that between lives we encounter these entities that plan our next life. What do you mean plan my next life? How can you plan for what I'm going to do with my free will? You see what I mean? There's never really free will. And yet somehow at the same time, you have planned my life for me, and somehow I'm responsible for the things that happen in that life. The things that you planned and that you laid out to happen, somehow I'm responsible. Interesting. But there's another layer to it. One thing that I espouse all the time on this channel is Ho'oponopono. Not traditional Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono as taught by Dr. Ihaliakala Hugh Lin through his modality of Ho'oponopono called self-identity through Ho'oponopono. Which is why what I'm saying, if you know anything about this, it may be so puzzling. Because in Ho'oponopono, as taught by Dr. Hugh Lin, now if you don't know, the traditional Ho'oponopono of the Hawaiians was centered around resolving grievances between people and families to help reinforce social bonds. That's not really what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about Dr. Ihaliakala Hugh Lin's Ho'oponopono, that is the self-identity through Ho'oponopono. So to really, my point was, it must be so strange to hear me talk about disavowing all personal responsibility when Ho'oponopono, as taught by Hugh Lin, contains the premise that you are to accept 100% absolute responsibility. But I think that there's a nuance here to understand, because Ho'oponopono does work. Particularly as taught by Hugh Lin, it is a way of dissolving the separations between yourself and the 0 point, the divine emptiness. But it's predicated upon the concept of accepting 100% responsibility, which apparently is the thing that brings us back here, is that I did these terrible things, I must come back to make it right. There is a difference. If you pay really close attention, there is a difference. And it has everything to do with who or what is really accepting responsibility. So again, my statement, and I stand by it, and I don't think anything's really going to change my mind. I don't believe that the individual, the self, the personality, can, in all reasonableness, accept responsibility for the things it does. Because the things it does are predictable. Say that again. I don't believe that the individual, the personality, the self, can accept responsibility for the things it does or has done in the past. Because all of those things were predictable and planned ahead of time. However, there is an aspect of experience that can take responsibility. And I assert that that aspect of experience is called consciousness, which at the level of creation is the creator God known as Keter in Kabbalah. Let's narrate a conversation that I had with Gemini AI regarding the core points of Dr. Ihaliakala Hulin's self-identity through Ho'oponopono. I ask, what are the core tenets of Dr. Ihaliakala Hulin's modality of Ho'oponopono as distinct from traditional Ho'oponopono? I've heard talk of data and a 0 point. Can you explain? Gemini responds. Dr. Ihaliakala Hulin's modern adaptation of Ho'oponopono, often popularized as self-identity through Ho'oponopono, takes a traditional community-based Hawaiian practice of reconciliation and transforms it into an internal, psychological, and spiritual practice. While traditional Ho'oponopono is a group process led by a mediator to heal rifts within a family or community, Dr. Hulin's framework is entirely solitary, focusing on the relationship between you and your own mind. Here is the breakdown of his core tenets, including how data and the 0 point form the foundation of his work. 1. 100% absolute responsibility. In traditional practice, you are responsible for your specific actions and their impact on others. In Dr. Hulin's modality, your responsibility is total and absolute. Because the entire world is a projection of your own subconscious mind, anything you experience, a difficult coworker, a global crisis, or a personal illness, is happening because a memory or program within you is creating it. You aren't to blame for the external world, but you are 100% responsible for cleaning the internal data that manifests it. Read that one more time. Anything you experience is happening because a memory or program within you is creating it. You aren't to blame for the external world, but you are 100% responsible for cleaning the internal data that manifests it. 2. Data, subconscious memories. When Dr. Hulin speaks of data, he is referring to the massive ancient storehouse of memories, programs, and conditioning operating in the subconscious mind. According to self-identity through Ho'oponopono, the subconscious is constantly replaying these old memories inherited from ancestors, past lives, and collective history, like a software program running in the background. What we perceive as a problem in the physical world is actually just a memory replaying as data. Therefore, you never try to fix the person or the problem outside of yourself. Instead, you target the internal data that is experiencing or projecting the problem. 3. The 0 point, the void. The ultimate goal of Dr. Hugh Len's clearing process is to reach the 0 point, or what he calls the state of void. 0 point, a state of perfect emptiness where there is no data, no memories, no past identity, and no program running. When you clean the data, you clear the screen of your mind. It is only at this 0 point, when you are completely empty, that divine inspiration can come through. If you are full of data, you are acting out of memory. If you are at 0, you are acting out of pure inspiration, which is aligned with the divine. 4, the cleaning process, the inner dialogue. To move from data to the 0 point, Dr. Hugh Len used a continuous mental cleaning process directed inward toward the divine, or the superconscious mind. This is the famous 4-phrase mantra. I love you connects to the divine and shifts your energy to a state of appreciation. I'm sorry acknowledges that some unknown data in your subconscious created this experience. Please forgive me asks the divine to heal and transmute that data into emptiness. Thank you expresses gratitude and faith that the cleaning is being done. Unlike traditional Ho'oponopono, where you say these things to another person to repair a relationship, in Dr. Hugh Len's method, you say them entirely within yourself, asking the divine to erase the shared data that is causing the distress. In short, Dr. Hugh Len's modality views the entire process. In short, Dr. Hugh Len's modality views the entire universe as an echo chamber of your own subconscious data. By relentlessly applying the 4 phrases to whatever arises, you pull the data back to 0, allowing the inspiration to take its place. Okay, there's a lot to cover here. First one I wanted to point out. The subconscious is constantly replaying these old memories like a software program running in the background. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth that there is free will, but it is acting through data? It is acting through a kind of software program that is guiding you towards the outcomes that are happening. Okay? The 0 point. This is a lot of what I'm talking about when I talk about moving away from multiplicity back to emptiness and dissolving, back to a oneness, is that we are trying to stop potential energy. We are trying to stop the oscillations of dualities that stir the passions and also become out of control and guide us as a software program. So by clearing the data, we regain freedom. We regain divine inspiration. What really big one I wanted to point out is the difference between traditional Ho'oponopono and how Hugh Len's Ho'oponopono is working. The data is what's responsible for this outcome. Yes. Yeah, nowhere in Hugh Len's work does he say, you chose to take on certain data, and therefore you, the individual, are to blame for these things happening. But what he does say is that you should act from a place of responsibility for these things happening. And I think this is the crucial nuance. The individual self has no responsibility. It can't possibly have any responsibility because it never acted from a place of true freedom. It acted from data. And data is creating things without our active, free consent. Yes or no? Is the data creating things that we consciously are willing to be so? Are we exercising free will when this data creates these outcomes? No, it is being created for us as data. The data is creating things according to this software, this AI is creating things. It's not from a place of true freedom. So, what part of us is the part that can accept responsibility when so much of what we are is data? I'll ask that again. What part of us is the part that can really, truly accept 100% responsibility if so much of what we are is data and created through the distortions of data, created through the distortions of the law of spirit? And that answer is consciousness. The consciousness that insists upon creation. That is the creator God. That is what's known as Keter. Because it exists beyond data, because it is unconditioned by data, every choice it makes, it's from a place of absolute freedom and therefore absolute free will. But there's really only one choice that consciousness has made. And it is to step into creation. That is what Keter is. Keter is the aspect of the monad, the pre-existent monad, that decided to step into existence and to step into multiplicity. It used its free will, 100% free will, to create that outcome. And in doing that, it has subjected consciousness to data, which has created these abominations, which has created these terrible outcomes that are the consequence of data, that are the consequence, I should say, of consciousness passing through data, because the data itself alone, without the consciousness to pass through it, could not create these outcomes. It needs an invigorating spark of life. So how can we, the personality, the individual that is made up of data, we are made up, the individual itself is made up of data. It's made up of a lack of free will. Indeed, we are made up of a lack of free will. But there is one aspect of ourselves that does retain access to free will, and that is the pure, unconditioned consciousness that is perceiving all of this. And it is that part of ourselves that is the divine, and it is that part of ourselves that can accept 100% responsibility for everything that happens. But why did it happen? The core reason that it happened is that we allowed consciousness to exist in data. The proof of this is that everything that happens is predictable. Everything happens because it couldn't have hardly been any other way, because this software program has basically guaranteed it to happen. That's what the law of force and the law of spirit are. But consciousness, through its 100% free will, chose to pass into the software program, resulting in these things happening. So when we accept 100% responsibility, it's not the individual accepting responsibility. The individual can accept no responsibility. What um, it is us appealing to that part of ourselves that is the divine, that is the consciousness, to clear this data. I read it again. I love you connects you to the divine and shifts your energy to a state of appreciation. I'm sorry acknowledges that some unknown data in your subconscious created this experience. This is the I'm sorry of the consciousness itself, from the perspective of the consciousness itself. That consciousness passed through the data, it chose to do that, and this has resulted in this outcome. Please forgive me. All right, we're asking the divine to heal and transmute that data into emptiness. You see what I mean? This shift in perspective means a lot. It means the individual has no agency. The individual is a prisoner because data is a prison, and the individual is made up of data. There's only one aspect of the being that is free, and it is the consciousness itself, the unconditioned mind. And so in order to return back to the 0 point, back to the emptiness, back to the non-dual light, you have to appeal to that part of itself to undo its sin. There are no sins for the individual because the individual has no agency. There are no sins. There's only the original sin, which is consciousness choosing duality and choosing fragmentation, which creates a software-like, prison-like reality. It's the renunciation of absolute freedom. Okay, so that's really important to understand. So understanding this, what do you tell these archons? What do you tell these jailers? It's like, yeah, you did this though, you could have been a lot better, you hurt a lot of people. I'm like, yes, I did. Because I was programmed to do that. I accept no responsibility for that. But I am not me. There is no me. There's only consciousness. And as consciousness, I say to that, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. That dissolves it. What are you apologizing for? You're apologizing for being consciousness that passed into data. That dissolves the data. You're apologizing for being consciousness that's chosen to participate in creation. Because creation itself is multiplicity, which can only be achieved by the fragmentation of free, unified consciousness into a software-like cyclical wheel of predictable outcomes. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, I think the implications of this are pretty immense. It means also that you cannot go on a mission to save the world or to help it be better, because you can't do that. Only the data can do that. And the data may do that itself according to the AI program at some point. It seems to not be doing that at this time. It seems to be basically giving the false promise to this to the mental body to come down and do that job, but ultimately ends up not doing the job. According to the construction of the program itself, it seems predictable that that outcome will actually eventually take place. This is why I say it's not really in the individual's hands, it's in the hands of God's. There are planets that exist that are part of this computer program that bring about perfecting desirable ideal outcomes, that are healing outcomes. The Sun and Jupiter, even Venus. Ask Marsilio Ficino if those planets are healing. But if the Time Lords that are at play at the level of the world are malefic, you could be told to come down and heal the planet, but if the Time Lords are malefic, you are not going to be a part of this program that's going to bring about that outcome. There are overriding programs for that. But ultimately, none of these things matter. There can never be a mission to heal the world, because the world is made of data, and data is brokenness itself. The world is made up of brokenness, just like the self is made up of brokenness. Fragmentation. Literally brokenness. The renunciation of true free will to the point that the aspects of the divine are fragmented shards that operate in a linear time format that is predictable. It's brokenness. So, no, you can never fix that. It can never be fixed. The world can never be fixed because it's made up of brokenness. It is where non-dual light meets primordial darkness and emptiness. Now, that to me addresses, in some of my text posts I've covered the completeness thing. Yeah, let me cover that real quick. So we've addressed the shame bomb, because there can be no individual responsibility. There can only be the responsibility that's taken on by consciousness itself, choosing to not participate in creation. That's the one sin, and that's the one sin you can atone for by being consciousness that does not participate in creation. And that's what dissolves that, brings you back to the 0 point. And basically that connects you to the current of consciousness. There's a current of consciousness that draws consciousness into creation. There's a current of consciousness that draws it back to the monad, the sources, the breath of the universe. And so when you reaffirm that the only sin is consciousness passing into creation, you're attaching yourself to the current that draws you back to the monad, because you're taking responsibility for creation. That puts you on that current, that puts you on that timeline. Okay, so that addresses the shame bombing, is that the individual has no responsibility. We've got what was it? Mission, yep. All the missions are pre-programmed, and so there's really no evidence. Actually, there's evidence against the idea that process will ever be completed, because the malefics exist to break things and the benefics exist to heal things. So you could be part of a period of time where things may be healed, but it's just going to get broken again. And in an ultimate sense, everything is fundamentally broken because the world is made up of brokenness. So therefore, there goes the mission. There's no mission to heal things, because creation itself is made up of brokenness, and in order to actually heal it, there needs to be a withdrawal from creation itself, which again is the opposite of the thesis of these jailers, is that you need to go back down into creation to heal creation. Where actually, in order to heal creation, you need to unmake creation by moving back to the pre-existent monad. Then there's the idea of refinement of the soul, that you could do better, and that we need to send you back down there to make you more complete. The problem with this is that this is a journey back down into emptiness and incompleteness, where everything is made up of cycles. The proof that there is no completeness or fullness here is that there's only cycles and fragments of reality down here. And you can be healed of incompleteness by drinking of completeness and not incompleteness. When you choose to come down into creation, everything you could possibly encounter is incomplete. And there's an infinite number of permutations of the completeness of the monad. In other words, God is infinitely vast, so there is no point at which all of God's infinity will encounter its own infinity. Therefore, everything you ever encounter will always be incomplete. And if you are forming a relationship, if you are engaging with these aspects of incompleteness, you're drinking of incompleteness rather than drinking of completeness, which is the monad. So if you just drink of the monad, which is the inward convergence to the core of being, the 0 point, the emptiness, as Hugh Len puts it, you're actually solving that problem. And by coming back down into the earth, you're drinking of incompleteness, which is actually making the problem worse. So those are 3 things right there. The other 2, which is reunions with people and the lusts of the world, that is usually just handled by your standard monastic asceticism. But yeah, all 5 of these things are resolved by these shifts of perspective. And in my opinion, they're pretty logically airtight. So yeah, essentially, you can just become a monk, renounce the world and the flesh. You can stop identifying as the self, because when you identify with the self, you are identifying with data, which is the program itself and which is the prison itself. The prison is made up of data. And by identifying with the consciousness itself, which is really the non-dual light, you gain the free will necessary to dissolve the data, which it attaches you to the current, which brings you back to the non-dual light, which is the monad. Yeah, I think that's about it. That was a lot. But yep, that's today's video. And goodbye.